Hola muchachos, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes. Aquí tienen las instrucciones virtuales de tu tarea Guided Workbook Pages 83, 84 y Core Workbook Pages 44. Alright, so we're going to start with Guided Page 83. This is pretty straightforward, and the Guided pages always tend to be more forthright than the course. So for part A, and you're provided with the notes there of the preterite tense endings for AR, ER, and IR verbs. You have those in the handout that I provided you all at the beginning of this chapter, and you also have those on page 110 of the textbook. So referring to those pages and what's provided there in the workbook, you guys are going to write the number 1 if you feel like the sentence is in the present tense. You're going to write the number 2 if you feel like the sentence is in the preterite. 1 for present, 2 for preterite. So for example, yo aprendí a leer. Aprendí. You can see there it's even in the example conjugation of an ER verb. That's a past tense ending. So you're going to write 2. Tú miraste el letrero. Aste is an AR ending in the 2 form in the past. And so number 1 would be 2 as well. For part B, same thing, except you guys are providing the ending that's appropriate according to the subject, and it's only for the preterite tense endings. So nosotros, ending for ER verbs is imos, and that's how we got comimos in la cafeteria. Ustedes, the verb aprender, it's actually in the example here. And the ustedes form would be aprendieron. Ustedes aprendieron a leer en la escuela. You guys learned to read in school. Yo no escribí. Right? Escribir an IR verb in the yo form. Yo no escribí la carta. And for part C, it's getting you to practice the fact that verbs, and we actually didn't spend a lot of time talking about this, so it's good that you're doing this here. Verbs that have a stem change, right, a spelling change in the present tense, like jugar, for example, or poder. We looked at these at the very beginning in quarter 1. Verbs that have a stem change in the present, they don't change in the past, which I guess is good news, one less thing you have to worry about when expressing yourself in the past. So all of these verbs in part C are verbs that are irregular in the present, right? Like, for example, encontrar, which you can see here is part of part C. Encontrar has a spelling change. The O in encontrar changes to UE. Again, that's in the present tense, but in the past you can see that the spelling change does not occur. So, for example, la semana pasada yo fui al centro comercial. This is the verb ir in the past. We're going to look at that actually in the next chapter. The verb to go, ir. Pero yo no. And then encontrar. Not going to change its stem, so all we got to do is drop the AR ending. And the ending of AR verbs in the yo form would be e. So encontrar becomes encontré. Take off the AR and put in E with an accent. And keep in mind, despertarse is a reflexive verb. So you're going to take off arse when you conjugate it, but you're also going to add a reflexive pronoun at the beginning. You can look at page 80, página 80, to refresh your memory on those reflexive pronouns that we use for reflexive verbs. Finally, part D, you're practicing your conjugations of car, gar, zar verbs. These are verbs that have a spelling change only in the yo form, and that's articulated on page 110. How car verbs, gar verbs, and zar verbs have a spelling change, but only in the yo form. In the to form, in the él, ella, nosotros, ellos, ellas, ustedes, all other forms, they're not irregular. There's no spelling change. And that's also articulated at the bottom of your handout that you were given at the beginning of the year. You transferred that over to those notes. So if we take a look at that part together, you can see the first section is in the yo form. So you're going to account for that spelling change, but as they put up here in the boxes, no spelling change occurs in the other forms. So number 1, ¿buscaste una camisa nueva? Did you look for a new shirt? Si yo busqué una camisa nueva. Tere, which is short for Teresa, a young lady's name. Tere buscó zapatos. So you're using the verb buscar for all 3 blanks here. Using the verb pagar for all 3 blanks in number 2. Using the verb almorzar for all 3 blanks in number 3. And then this is the verb llegar, which is the verb to arrive. Llegar. L-L-E-G-A-R, and that's the verb that you'll use for those 2 blanks. Finally, the core side, which is page 44, you guys are going to fill in the sentences there for part A about Anna and her friends going shopping. You're talking about what they saw, what they bought, their shopping experience. And you're going to express the verbs provided in the preterite according to the subject at the beginning of the sentence. You can see the example there. Alicia y sus amigos decidieron ir de compras. Alicia and her friends, they decided, and that's why we're using the ellos, ellas, ustedes ending. And decide is an IR verb, so that's how we get decidieron ir de compras. Alicia y sus amigos, we got the same subject as number 1. Got a different verb, the verb llegar. Llegar, a cargar, is our verb, but we're going to be conjugating it in the same form as the example, right? Since we're talking about Alicia and her friends. So, aron, since llegar is an AR verb, is the ending that we want to use for that first example. Alicia y sus amigos llegaron. Llegaron al mercado. Do one more together. Number 2, to, and then the verb ver, which is the verb to see. Ver una liquidación, to see a sale. Ver in the to form would be viste, right? Just take off the ER and add iste. Tu viste una liquidación. Finally, for part B, Alfredo describes what he did yesterday. Supply the correct yo form of the verb in parentheses. This is similar to page 44, the guided side, because as you can tell, they're having you use exclusively cargar-zar verbs. So you want to account for that spelling change, as all of these are in the yo form. Yo llegué. L-L-E-G-U-E. Right? L-L-E-G-U-E with an accent above the E, of course. Yo llegué a la escuela a las 8 menos cuarto. I arrived at school a 7:45. En la sala de computadoras, yo navegué. Another gar verb, so the ending's going to be just like number 1, right? N-A-V-E-G-U-E with an accent above the E. Yo navegué en la red. I went online. Navegar en la red, you may remember from last semester, is to go online. Surf the web. One more. Tocar is to play music. It's a car verb, so the change there is going to be a C to a Q-U. And then the yo form ending being an E with an accent. Yo toqué en la orquesta de la escuela. I played in the school orchestra. So that is your homework, muchachos. Para la clase que viene, guided workbook pages 83, 84, core workbook pages 44. And you guys can use the textbook page 110, and then also the handout that I gave you, which actually if you click on this link, it'll take you right to that handout that we filled out together in class.